Hook people pleasers live an average of 7 years less than those who set firm boundaries. 7 years of your life, handed over in small pieces every time you say yes when you mean no. That single statistic should stop you cold. Because most people reading this right now have said yes today to something they genuinely did not want to do. And they have no idea what that pattern is actually costing them. Tease in the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover why the word no is one of the most powerful tools a human being possesses, why most people are terrified to use it, and what happens to your health, your relationships, and your career when you finally do. We are going to cover the psychology, the science, and the real-world strategy. And the most counterintuitive insight is coming near the end. It will completely change how you think about saying no to the people you love most. Background: the idea of setting personal limits is not a modern invention. Stoic philosophers in ancient Greece and Rome wrote extensively about the discipline of protecting your time and energy. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal journals, repeatedly returned to one theme, that a person who cannot refuse a request cannot truly govern themselves. The Stoics believed that your attention was your most sacred resource, and allowing others to redirect it without your conscious consent was a form of self-betrayal. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the psychology of boundaries started to become a formal field of study. In the 1970s, psychologists began examining what they called codependency, a pattern where individuals sacrifice their own needs so completely to manage the emotions of others that they lose a clear sense of their own identity. The research was initially focused on people in relationships with addicts, but what they found was far more universal. This pattern existed everywhere, in workplaces, friendships, families, and even casual social interactions. By the 1990s, the concept of emotional boundaries had entered mainstream psychology, and researchers were beginning to link the inability to say no to measurable health consequences. The evidence was piling up, and it pointed in one direction: chronic overcommitment was not just stressful. It was biologically destructive. Main content here is what the science actually shows. When you say yes to something you do not want to do, your brain does not simply register mild discomfort. It activates a low-grade stress response. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, begins to elevate. If this happens occasionally, your body handles it well. But when it becomes a pattern, when you are saying yes out of guilt or fear dozens of times per week, that cortisol elevation becomes chronic. And chronic elevated cortisol is linked to heart disease, immune suppression, digestive problems, disrupted sleep, and accelerated cellular aging. A 2012 study published in the journal Psychological Science found that people who had higher levels of what researchers called self-control, which in this context meant the ability to resist social pressure and act in alignment with their own values, reported significantly greater life satisfaction and lower levels of conflict in their daily lives. The ability to decline was not just a social skill. It was a core component of psychological well-being. But here is what nobody talks about: the reason most people cannot say no has nothing to do with being nice. It has everything to do with fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of conflict. Fear of losing approval. When you trace the inability to say no back to its root, you almost always find a story someone was told early in life, that their worth depended on their usefulness to others. That love had to be earned through compliance. That disagreement was dangerous. This is why boundaries feel so threatening to people who have never had them. It is not a communication problem. It is an identity problem. You have built part of your self-image around being available, agreeable, and accommodating. Saying no feels like dismantling yourself. Think about the last time you agreed to something and immediately felt resentment. Not later, immediately. That instant resentment is important data. It is your nervous system telling you that a boundary was just crossed with your own permission. Most people ignore that signal. They push through the resentment, they perform the task, and they call it kindness. But performing obligations you resent is not generosity. It is theater. And eventually, that theater becomes exhausting. Research from the University of California found that people who regularly suppress their true preferences in social situations show higher rates of burnout, more frequent illness, and report feeling significantly less in control of their own lives. The word for this in psychology is self-silencing. And it is far more common than most people realize. Deep dive. So what does it actually look like to build a life with real boundaries? The first thing most experts get wrong is that they frame boundaries as walls, things you build to keep people out. That framing is backwards. A boundary is not a wall. It is a definition. It defines what you are available for and what you are not. It communicates your values more clearly than almost anything else you can do. When you set a clear boundary with someone, you are not attacking them. You are giving them accurate information about who you are and what you need. That information actually makes relationships stronger, not weaker. The people in your life who are worth keeping will respect that information. The people who cannot tolerate your limits were never truly respecting you, they were enjoying your compliance. Here is a concept that changes everything: the yes underneath the no. Every meaningful no you say is actually a yes to something else. When you say no to a commitment you do not believe in, you are saying yes to your time. When you say no to a toxic relationship, you are saying yes to your mental health. When you say no to overworking for someone who does not value you, you are saying yes to your dignity. The no is not the end of the sentence. It is the beginning of a better one. Brené Brown's research at the University of Houston, which spanned over 2 decades and involved thousands of interviews, found something striking about highly generous people. The most genuinely generous individuals in her study were also the ones most comfortable saying no. They gave freely and completely because they only gave what they actually had to offer. Their generosity was real because it was chosen. Compare that to people who cannot say no. Their giving is not free. It comes with invisible strings, unspoken resentments, and an accumulating emotional debt that eventually gets paid in bitterness. Analysis: the workplace implications of this are enormous. A 2019 Gallup report found that 67% of workers experience burnout at work, and when researchers dug into the causes, lack of control over workload was one of the top 3 factors. People were accepting task after task because the culture made saying no feel career-threatening. The result was not loyalty or productivity. It was collapse. The most effective high performers, by contrast, are known not just for what they take on, but for what they deliberately decline. Warren Buffett has said publicly that the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Jeff Bezos built his company culture around the concept of disagree and commit, meaning you can say no, you can push back, and that is not a weakness. It is a requirement for good decisions. The counterintuitive insight promised at the start is this: the people who benefit most from you learning to say no are the people you love. When you stop overextending, you stop being resentful. When you stop being resentful, your presence becomes genuine. Your yes actually means something because it is not automatic. Your love becomes cleaner because it is not mixed with hidden obligation. The boundary does not push the people you love away. It makes the space between you honest. Conclusion: here is what you need to take from this. The inability to say no is not a virtue. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Get Up Life for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.